The summer of 2024 has been a turbulent and historic few months, one unlike any in recent history. An assassination attempt was made on President Donald Trump, which has in itself sparked so much conversation about the conspiracy and social relevance of this nearly tragic event.
Yeah. Motherfucker. What's up, nigga? Gangsta rap, nigga.
The economy is showing signs of complete collapse. England is tyrannical and on the verge of civil war. The USA border is being invaded by illegal immigrants. And we at the America Happens Network have been building a documentary on Mike Little and the Bundys of the Bundy Ranch standoff as they sue the federal government in what could become one of the most important lawsuits in American history. But more on that in a sec. We arrive at the RNC convention to cover the happenings for the America Happens Network. Many of the all-stars of the freedom and conservative movements are here.
Thank you, guys. What are you doing?
And just as we're getting into all the events, we get the news. Mike Little is in the hospital. He's dying. What do you mean Mike Little is dying? We think he got poisoned. His whole body's swollen, arms swollen. He's having a hard time breathing. Incidentally, Mike Little is the guy that was about to drop a lawsuit against what some would call deep state elements within our government. A lawsuit that exposes the entirety of Las Vegas was built on fraud. The America Happens Network presents This is a Declaration of War, a documentary series where every episode we capture a story about the forces of tyranny declaring war on we the people. And we show what these civilians did in fighting this tyranny back. In this episode, Bundy versus Deep State.
A confrontation in Nevada this morning threatens to become a modern-day range war. The government is taking away a rancher's herd, and tensions are running quite high. Terry Okita is in Bunkerville, Nevada. That's about 80 miles northeast of Las Vegas.
The Bundys made worldwide news after the U.S. government and multiple U.S. agencies descended upon their ranch in 2014, demanding that they get off the land which they claimed was owned by the U.S. government.
BLM joined forces with 4 other federal agencies to enforce their unlawful trespass and destroy our ranch. They set up a massive military-like compound on the range with 200 hired guns, mercenaries. They surrounded our ranch and put it under siege. They began to brutally round up our cattle with helicopters, running them to death, shooting them from the air, and leaving the newborn cows out on the range to thirst to death or to be eaten by coyotes. The dead cattle were dumped into mass graves dug by federal backhoes.
If you listen to the mainstream news media, they represent the Bundys as deadbeat ranchers, tax evaders, domestic terrorists.
A law-breaking rancher named Cliven Bundy, and it has literally put the Bureau of Land Management in the crosshairs of sniper rifles.
They had snipers out at Bunkerville pointing sniper rifles at these people, and then when they got called on it, they said, "Oh, we don't have any snipers. We have marksmen." Isn't it like saying she's not a prostitute, she's just a woman of negotiable affection?
There's been a confrontation out there. A rancher, Cliven Bundy is his name. Listen to Harry Reid characterizing what he thinks of those people yesterday.
These people, they're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
Why do you think that calf is dead? Is that calf dead because somebody killed? Let me finish the question. Is that calf dead because somebody killed it, or is it dead because of your reluctance to follow through with the laws that every other rancher in your state complies with?
The Bundy Ranch incident happened in 2014, way before the 2020 election, way before COVID-19, way before January 6th, the lawfare against Trump, and the border invasion.
So when I was drafting the complaint, it became obvious to me that the Bundys were like the precursor of the Donald Trump exercise. And all the techniques and tactics that the defendants used with the Bundys showed up in January 6th. The same modus operandi. Placing human resources, provocators, instigators, needing to create a conflict. But in fact, it's like the Bundys and the outcome of the Bundys case. It was the government that went in to instigate conflict.
When you look at the picture of where we are today with government tyranny in America and around the world, it's easy to see. The Bundy Ranch incident was the tip of the spear in the fight for our freedoms, a war that has been quietly raging for decades. Just 30 years ago, there were 53 ranchers in this region. Today, there is just one left. The Bundys. Through policies that have resulted in the extermination of ranchers in this region, the U.S. government and its multiple agencies have successfully brought the Nevada rancher to the cusp of extinction.
This is a very simple case. It's about a man and a family who ranched the land. The family's been ranching it for 150 years. The federal government comes in, they claim a right to manage that land, and the way they're managing it would have driven him out of business.
Our family was threatened by BLM personnel that said, if we resisted in any way, this would be another Waco or Ruby Ridge.
For those that don't know, the incident in Waco is also called the Waco Massacre, which includes 76 individuals being killed due to the actions of the U.S. federal government. And Ruby Ridge refers to an incident where 2 people were killed again due to the actions of the U.S. federal government.
When you do these things, they bring in the what they call the administrative police state, and they shoot you. You say that's the world we live in now. It's not about the law and the courts and doing the legal thing. It's about shooting you and getting rid of you, and then holding forever committee meetings about why you didn't have cameras on. You know, why'd you shoot the guy?
The World Economic Forum wants to reduce the population by at least 50%, which I find and everybody should find very troublesome. The other thing is that in order to do that, we have multiple programs going at the same time. One of them is to get rid of the food supply, because as they always say with soldiers, that you can control people through food, because when you're hungry, your hearts and your minds will follow.
The Western Watershed Environmental Group has sued the state of Nevada and BLM and the Department of Interior for not protecting the lands on the Gold Butte Monument and in the state of Nevada. It's starting over again. Just Western Watersheds is to the Center for Biological Diversity, suing the state and the feds for having cattle and not protecting the desert forests.
So they're trying to use some environmental shtick to basically get you guys to not raise cattle on this land?
That's what they did 10 years ago, and that's what they're trying to do again.
They don't file it against us. They file it against the BLM and the state of Nevada and the Department of Interior. But it's a sort of the government's all involved with it, and they sue theirself type thing.
Well, I actually see it a little differently. I think the environmental groups basically are engaged, employed by the 1% of the elitist in the world, and that all of this environmental movement is basically a land grab.
In summary, environmental groups sue the government over some sort of environmental claim. For example, that the Bundy Ranch has a portion of it that is on a monument, and then the government is pressured into taking action.
Look up in this tree right here. Yeah, that's cow feed. That's cow food. Yeah, so that's basically hanging red meat like beef jerky? Yep, that's it. Their diet is so versatile. You take something in one of these factory feedlots, their diet is probably 80% corn. But out here, cattle just have a diet of unbelievable variety,
So we did a lot of research on the topic. The diet that Cliven is talking about is the best if you are consuming meat.
And they get to choose. It's not like man choosing it for them. They get to choose. If they need something, if their diet needs something, they go and they pick a bush or grass or weed or whatever it is they need. The cattle, they eat the blossoms, they eat some of the leaves, but man, they love those beans.
A, the factory farmed cows. B, the bugs and lab-made meat. Or C, the Bundy cows. Which one would you want to eat?
I notice this picture of all these people behind you. Who are all these people?
Every one of them.
Every one of them is a relative?
Blame them all. The big picture up there is all of my children and their husbands and wives.
Right.
There's 14 of us, and then each one of these sets of picture here are their families. Grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, but by the end of the year we'll have 99 of them.
If you look at all the things the Bundys have, first and foremost, they are free. If the entire economy were to collapse around them, they have enough food, water, and natural resources, including men and women power, with a huge family to survive any apocalypse. This man and any such apocalypse would basically be Noah, with what his family has built through 5 generations. We know governments and corporations like us to be financially enslaved, for example. Look at anybody that's discovered a cure for cancer or free energy. Number 2, they're a huge, healthy family that doesn't need the government. It's pretty clear that there is an agenda to destroy the nuclear family and to make the children the property of the state. Number 3, the products they produce go against the agenda of moving us to bugs and lab-grown meat. Number 4, they are willing to stand up against a tyrannical federal government.
Make body slam my Aunt Margaret to the ground. And they tased me.
I'm gonna drag you out of the car, okay? Here in a second. Sir? Sir, leave now.
Several men came down, threw him to the ground, and then they detained him and took him to the compound.
1608, turn the camera off. Bundy has left the area.
With hired snipers on the hills, federal agents began to gang beat protesters for filming their abusive actions.
Cliven Bundy, and it has literally put the Bureau of Land Management in the crosshairs of sniper rifles.
Much of this abuse was caught on video and was posted on the internet. Within hours, millions had viewed the gross actions of these federal agencies. People from all over the United States began flowing to the ranch. That Saturday, thousands had assembled and demanded the Clark County Sheriff Department and the state governor to do their jobs in protecting the people from out-of-control federal agencies.
This Bundy family, no more than just a good ranch family. There's a good example of what they've tried to do to them right here on this deal right here. Only the people have finally had enough.
Well, the last 20 years, they've been after the good guy.
Yeah.
The Clark County Sheriff's Department finally stepped in and ended the abuse. All federal agents left the area within an hour, and the surviving cattle were brought back to the ranch to be doctored or turned out on the range. And then we went back to ranching.
But while the government has backed down temporarily, they spent what many believe to be over $100 million a year persecuting the Bundy family.
These people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
They did things like created a make-believe independent news company, and they went in, FBI agents with news cameras.
This is Charles Johnson with Longbow Productions.
And represented themselves as if they were some group out of Montana. But really what they were doing is they were video camera taping all the people in there so they could later go back and prosecute them.
The whole time my mom's in there cooking for them, and they're plotting to destroy our family.
Is this an interview and a documentary, or is this an interrogation?
After 2 more years of persecution, the Bundys were finally apprehended on trumped-up charges and thrown into jail.
The father of Ammon and Ryan Bundy is behind bars this morning at the Multnomah County Jail. Brent Weisberg is live there. He has more on the arrest of Cliven Bundy. Brent?
And behind me here in downtown Portland is the Multnomah County Detention Center this morning. That is where Cliven Bundy is waking up. It is the location where all federal prisoners are held, including Cliven Bundy and his 2 sons.
Cliven Bundy will stay behind bars as he awaits trial. During his hearing yesterday, a judge deemed him a danger to the community.
A judge ordered Melvin Bundy remain in federal custody ahead of the trial, saying he's a danger to the community. All 19 people charged in connection with that standoff remain behind bars.
And the Bundys were not given a speedy trial. They were left to rot in jail for 2 years before this matter came before a judge.
In some cases, I understand that some of them were beaten while they were in prison. A lot of emotional and mental damage to the women in the family whose husbands or loved ones were gone. And
having been raised in Nevada, we were always told that it was federal land. I go, there's got to be more to this story than this. So I started doing some research, and I came across some documents, historical documents, which happened to be the 1866 Congressional Act. Led me to Hoover Dam, and Hoover Dam was a party admission that the federal government doesn't own the land that they're claiming they own, and Cliven's claiming they don't own. And I'll be doggone if the federal government didn't have to buy 80 acres in order to put Hoover Dam on the Nevada side of the Colorado River.
More than 3 years later in federal court, prosecutors argue Bundy tried to incite a range war. He is on trial for assault and obstruction. Along with sons Ammon and Ryan, they face life in prison.
So it occurred to me that if the United States had to buy the land from the state of Nevada in 1931, that they obviously didn't own the land, which is what they've been claiming. So, first of all, we have to determine whether or not the United States actually owns the land that I'm talking about in the 1866 in Nevada. Mm-hmm. That question's been answered with the sale of Hoover Dam in 1933. So there's no question that the United States, according to history, does not own the land they claim they own. So if you look up the Nevada Rise statutes, you'll see that in 1931 they decided they were going to build Hoover Dam. The question is who owned the land on the Nevada side of the Colorado River? Well, it was determined that Nevada owned the land, and therefore the United States had to purchase the land, which they did for $600. They bought 80 acres to build the Nevada side of the Hoover Dam on the Colorado River. So that's memorialized in a statute, and so there's no question that at some point in time that land on the western side of the Colorado River opposite of Arizona was land owned not by the United States. Otherwise they wouldn't have had to purchase it, which proves conclusively that the land that the federal government was arguing that the Bundys were on illegal was in fact not owned by the federal government. So my research went further, and it turned out that in this fraud and negligence, the state of Nevada never actually legally amended the Constitution, and therefore the entire Clark County, as with an entire area of 11,530,000 acres, has never been legally brought into the state of Nevada by Constitution as required by law. So therefore, this 11,530,000 acres now rests outside the United States and outside the state of Nevada. It's not a Nevada territory, it's not a U.S. territory.
The significance of this information cannot be overstated. This would mean that the entire Clark County, the entirety of Las Vegas, is built on fraud. This would mean that every single property is built illegally.
Every time that the BLM sells a piece of property in Clark County or eastern boundary of the state, that's a party admission by the state of Nevada that they don't own it.
So at that point, I certainly knew I was going to go out to the Bundys and try to help them prove the truth, which is what they've been trying to do for decades.
And he took this information to him, gave him a copy of the act. They forced their attorney, who didn't think it was worth even mentioning, into their brief to dismiss, and lo and behold, the result was the case was dismissed.
After Bundy spent 700 days in jail, U.S. District Court Judge Gloria Navarro declared a mistrial, citing, quote, flagrant prosecutorial misconduct, and dropped the charges.
And the act, the information that I gave Cliven, although brought before the court, was set aside and wasn't ruled on because the court decided to move on exculpatory issues to dismiss the matter with prejudice.
Because the federal government has been claiming that they own that land for a long time, and they've been managing it, and they've been selling it off and charging people for it. In order to keep that from all being undone, it's our belief that the judge right away went to a Brady violation. She addressed that issue once before in the case, didn't find any problem with it. Then suddenly, when the 1866 Act gets mentioned, now all of a sudden it becomes extremely egregious to the point of dismissal.
So egregious an offense in violation of the Brady laws that they then took the exculpatory evidence and used it to dismiss the matter with prejudice and never mentioned the 1866 Congressional Act again.
How great and how wonderful it is to live in a land that we have some free speech and be able to exercise our conscience.
Did you know when you read the 1866 that you were going to win that thing?
Well, I knew that was a really strong argument, I'll tell you that.
It's unequivocal that the federal government does not own these lands.
Misconduct, and I don't know all the fancy words they said, and so we had to drop the case. Well, I never bought that right. I was right in jail, right in the court. I never bought that at all. I said, you guys, you carried this thing on for 2 more hours before that jury, and we'd brought the jurisdiction question.
Right, it was coming, wasn't it?
It was coming.
I knew they could not avoid this. It had to be heard. I did not know how Washington, D.C. would maneuver around this because they were kind of in a precarious situation because Cliven was in a federal detention center, and according to the law, if they had ruled that he was guilty, he had a jurisdictional challenge in front of the court, which is a constitutional argument. That's the Congressional Act of 1866. That would have allowed him to immediately write a writ of habeas corpus to the United States Supreme Court, where they would have had to have heard it because he was incarcerated. Washington, D.C., and I would suspect coming out of Harry Reid's office, the government, that's the Department of Justice, knew they were in a precarious situation. So now the issue was, how do we find an exit strategy so we don't have to deal with this Congressional Act and it doesn't end up at the United States Supreme Court? And this guy Bundy's in jail, and we're kind of all screwed in this program. People ask right now, why is Bundy out 10 years later walking the streets and none of them are in jail, and how come his cattle are still roaming around on that land and nobody's doing anything about it? Well, the fact of the matter is the government realizes that they're going to let this dead cow lie, if you would, because if they bring it up again, the Congressional Act comes up again and the actual ownership. So in this case, it's better to continue to harvest the minerals out of Nevada, give them to your special interests, put the Bundys on the burner, don't bother the Bundys don't bother you, and business as usual in Washington, D.C. Special interests exploit Nevada's land, their minerals, their resources, and Nevadans don't get a doggone thing out of the whole deal.
And so Mike grew up without his father. One time he told me his fathers were all black because his fathers were all his football coaches.
I went to the high school when MS-13 came to town. They started at my high school, Rancho. This is where you're going to have success.
They used to say that you had to fight your way into Rancho High School and you had to fight your way out.
Our household suffered poverty without question. The neighbors at that time, they were placed in the gaming industry, so they did fairly well. I was able to go down their houses and they had plenty of food.
So Mike was very involved in sports because he didn't have a father, and he took state in wrestling. And he went on to get a scholarship to Texas A&M. He was a freshman. They were not playing him on the field. Mike's a go-getter, very self-motivated, so he went out and he put himself in. And he just went out, tapped the guy, said, "You're out," took his place, and pretty soon started watching all the videos, and they saw that Mike Little was a tackling machine. And so they said, "That was real smart for you to put him in." Coach said, "I didn't put him in." And they were like totally dismayed that this guy had the balls to walk out on the field and put himself in instead of having the coach do it.
We currently, if you look at Nevada, we're probably the 4th largest gold and silver producer in the world. We have Canadian miners digging up Nevada's gold, and then after it's smelted, they send it to China, sell it to China. So that gold and silver and other precious metals that the people of Nevada would rightfully own, the federal government has control over through fraud.
Harry Reid got all the people in the state, his minions, to let the federal government make the claim, said, "Hey, look, it's a better deal because now we don't have to manage the land, they'll manage it for us." So all this goes all the way back to Dirty Harry, Harry Reid.
He's the person that identified Obama to be a president, recruited him, nurtured him, and brought him into the presidential office. So here in Nevada, Harry Reid has done a lot of fraud, land theft. Coyote Springs issue out there in the Acklands in Nevada, where a good friend of his ends up with some 45,000 acres of allegedly federal land, which was not federal land. But Harry also, he would give all the Indian reservations some more land for economical purposes. And so as most of the Indian reservations got small pieces of expandable land, the Moapa tribe here in southern Nevada, huge piece of property. Harry Reid couldn't do a deal with the Chinese over the land. What he does is he legally conveys it through congressional actions and gives it to the Indian reservation, which is a sovereign nation. Then all of a sudden, his son Rory can negotiate a contract with the Chinese and the Indians on sovereign land, and now all of a sudden it's not federal land. Wow. See, so when it was United States government land, it was against the law, it was a federal crime. So what he had to do is he used the Indians as a straw man in order to create a business deal, a self-serving business deal between the Chinese and the Indian reservation. If the Bundys were right, then all the land would cease to be controlled by the United States, and all the special interests, such as like Harry Reid, they couldn't cut these deals.
According to the case that Mike and Ross have put together, 11,530,000 acres of land in Nevada remain unclaimed. That's the entire area in yellow. That area includes Las Vegas.
This 11,530,000 acres now rests outside the United States, and therefore I claimed it. I've had to file a legal claim, which I've done, claim possessory title of the land, which I've done.
According to their case on paper, this land reads as abandoned property. The United States relinquished it, and the state itself relinquished it. It is in an illegal no man's land. It has been abandoned for 157 years.
The fraud continues, or the fraud ceases to continue, and if the fraud ceases to continue, then I'm the legal owner of 11,530,000 acres, which I plan to redistribute to the people of Nevada. And now I get an opportunity to take these mortgages, bund them back into a people's bank, and they can take their loans at 1%, and then they can file a claim against the federal government to recover all of the money that's been stolen from them. If you're sitting out there right now and you know that you've paid 12 years on a mortgage, and most of it's all gone to interest, let's call it an even $150,000, $200,000, you would think you'd want that back.
In summary, Mike Little's master plan was to use the opportunity of catching this fraud to reinvent the banking system into one that improved the lives of the people of Nevada.
So what the people need to do is they need to decide they want to move their mortgage into a people's financial institution. And at that point, it's out of the banking industry. They become their own banking business. And those mortgages, and all new mortgages in this area, would be 1%. What you would do is you would immediately reinstitute the wealth going to the people, and they'd have ownership of it at 1%. So there wouldn't be a misery index attached to the usury, and it's that misery index that people are suffering with right now. The American misery index is usury in the banks. That's that interest rate. So if you think about the index and you say a 1% index is probably 1% usury, which is interest on a mortgage, is probably a pretty light misery index. You get up to 6-7%, all of a sudden you look at your mortgage and you're paying $1,800 in interest for 30 years and $200 in principal or less. That's the index. It's another word for misery. Usury is misery. Usury is misery. They want you to use their bank money so you can forever be a miserable human being. And your kids will suffer.
I think we can all agree this is the kind of talk that gets men killed and countries destroyed. And Michael knew it.
Yeah, I'm concerned that they're going to shoot me, but I'm okay because I've had a good run.
The purpose of this lawsuit is to establish that the federal government does not own the land.
The complaint that we're filing for the Bundys reveals this game.
Once that's established, the gates are open for the Bundys to sue for massive damages for everything they went through.
Not one police state agency stood up for the Bundys. Their rights didn't stop the federal government. Our Sheriff Lombardo, the governor now, Dirty Hands, was in on it. He was given testimony to try to send these people to prison for the rest of his life. This guy violated his oath of office and got rewarded. I would never have imagined a day would come that we'd be sitting here saying that 157 years of political corruption and stupidity and ignorance finally comes to the Bundy residence to be resolved. Basically what you've just done and what I'm doing is I'm probably doing one of the largest financial shifts in Nevada ever, because those people and all those mortgages no longer are lawfully in those banks, holding companies, Wall Street, bundled investment deals, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, none of it, all fraud. Therefore, most of the people in this valley literally own their land. They just don't know it yet. And so now we're going to prove that the United States doesn't own the land. And the question's going to come very soon, who does own the land? But if, like the Bundys, you say you don't own it, they swoop down on you and lock you up, they beat you up, they taser you, they'll do anything necessary to prevent you from actually making the legal argument of who the legal owner is and isn't.
Mike Little knew that he was putting his life on the line by filing this lawsuit against government officials for stolen land.
When you do these things, they bring in the what they call the administrative police state, and they shoot you. You say that's the world we live in now. Now we've asked for a protective order and declaratory and injunctive relief in this complaint. And so the protective order is obvious because we anticipate the same kind of force that'll be used against us again as was used and is used every time somebody challenges the government in America. Yeah, I'm concerned that they're going to shoot me, but I'm okay because I've had a good run.
These initial interviews with Michael were shot in late May and early June in 2024. Just 2 months after we filmed the initial interviews, we're with a greatly depleted and ill Mike Little.
Okay, he's deteriorating, considerably, and that's our concern, that, every day that he stays, to an answer, but he's getting closer to checking out,
He's not getting close to checking out right now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I am.
Don't worry about it.
5 weeks into the hospitalization of Mike Little, the doctors still have no diagnosis, even though all traditional tests have been conducted. This is one of the reasons we believe Mike Little was poisoned.
You're the doctor?
I'm a doctor.
Pleasure to meet you. We do think that potentially he was poisoned with something, whether it's radiation or not.
What I know for sure is that he has a condition, a heart condition. It's called atrial fibrillation. All right, and he has COVID. Those are objectives.
What would be the test to see if he has, large amount of radiation potential poisoning?
We don't do any of that here. I can look it up, but I highly doubt we have a test like that here. I just don't understand where his pain's coming from.
Abdomen.
Abdomen, okay.
Right, I'm giving him pain meds.
I don't want to fucking pain. I want to get up and walk out of here. That's what I want.
Why'd you come to the hospital then?
We're having a hard time wrapping our head around why nobody has any kind of idea what's going on, and nothing.
No, I agree with you guys.
Yeah.
I saw the charts. I don't see answers. I agree with you guys, but
Yeah, that's
again,
what we're looking for.
Where's
your pain coming
everywhere.
from? Your whole body?
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
We stayed with Mike Little the entire August 17 and August 18 weekend, and he was stabilized and resting with a normal heartbeat.
August 19, 2024. Ross arrives at the hospital to continue helping Mike Little, only to be told by a family member that none of his friends are welcome.
His kicked us out, said, "You're not allowed in." She locked the door, she wouldn't let us in. So I knocked on the door, and she came over and she stepped out, and she goes, "Well, the family doesn't want you seeing him because he needs to rest and so he can heal."
This went directly against the wishes of Mike Little.
The person that's in charge of you apparently is, she doesn't want to cooperate with us. Told me to stay out of it and let the doctors take care of everything.
Now I told that I want you involved so that I could get out of it.
She told me no.
And the news from there quickly became worse. Just a day later, August 20th, 2024, we received the following message. Here's where we are. This is more than COVID. He has internal bleeding from ulcers. He's on push oxygen because his oxygen level is dangerously low. They're putting a feeding tube in tomorrow. Vem says, I don't get how this man is basically dying from something that they don't even have a diagnosis for after 5 weeks. And then just a day later, the news worsens. Mike is now on a ventilator and feeding tube in the ICU. This is about the worst news that one could get, because as we've heard over and over on the America Happens Network, putting somebody on a ventilator if they have COVID is a death sentence. And this is exactly what Vem says.
That sounds like an effing death sentence. What the F are they doing? Ventilators kill at this stage. And Ross reiterates, does he have COVID? He needs to be retreated. Everybody that has gone on a ventilator that I know who has COVID is dead. This is very dangerous.
Vem pleads saying, I know many doctors, and the doctors he's talking about are the ones that stood up against the killing fields of the hospitals.
I say very clearly, these protocols will kill Mike Little. We have to take charge. But they ignore me. They say that I'm threatening them. They say that I'm a conspiracy theorist.
In 2024, we live in 2 separate universes. Some of us are awake, and then there are the normies, the ones that think that everything is okay, the ones that believe in things like doctors know best.
Unfortunately, we weren't in control of Mike Little's health decisions, so the advice we were getting from the doctors we knew was ignored, and traditional approaches were instead followed.
On August 24, 2024, we get the dreaded news. Mike Little has passed. Ross has been quiet about his involvement in the Bundy case. The plan was to have Mike Little lead, despite Ross being the legal expert and author behind it. But with Mike Little gone, somebody needed to step up.
We're here because Mike is dead. And it's a travesty. We were just talking about it, and he just, one day, he was supposed to be coming to see me to work on this complaint, okay, and finalize it so that we could sign it and have it filed. And what happened is he didn't show up. But this guy was not somebody who would just, boom, get sick like that.
Oh, I know. I've been visiting with him.
We believe he was poisoned. He just suddenly became ill, no diagnosis, and now he's dead. 6 weeks. Well, he got exposed on this NPR guy that came out here. That's where his exposure was.
On May 29, 2024, NPR sent a reporter to the Bundy home to ask questions of Cliven Bundy. Carol Bundy told Mike Little that NPR had never been fair to them, so Mike Little decided to go out and have a conversation with the NPR reporter. This exchange got over 1 million views.
Hey, you from NPR? Oh, man. I said, I'm going to go get him and bring him in. And when we heard it was NPR doing an interview,
well, I was asking.
Oh, well, we said bring him on in. You don't mind if we're all in here, right?
Probably do, actually.
Oh, well,
yeah.
We can't stay, you can't stay.
I don't know.
So, well, I don't know you either.
Okay. Well,
but you're the one wanting to come in, and we're the one that said you can come in. So if you want to come in, we're all going to be in here together.
Okay, well, I can come back.
Well, I don't know if they want you to come back. You know, there's some questions in America right now that these groups come in and they cut and paste and they distort truth and they lay in the bushes. Now, we don't think that's you.
Yeah.
But because if it's not you, you won't mind coming in.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind coming in, come on in.
I'm not going to come in this context. Yeah.
I'm trying.
I would.
So are you telling me you won't come in to the Bundy's house and do an interview with us there because we'd actually be viewing you?
Yeah, but I mean,
you'd be uncomfortable with that.
Well, yeah, that's against
Why?
our ethics policy. That's why I can't.
Y'all don't have ethics.
Yeah. Well.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, really, we all know that.
Who are you again?
Nobody. To be honest, I own 11,530,000 acres, of which is a large portion of that, 20% of it. So I hope that that's a story you're going to take soon.
So I think they saw him on there and they targeted him. Started looking at him, started listening to his phone calls and all that stuff and checking him out. But now he's gone. So I want to see this thing filed. But I want to memorialize him and what happened to him in this complaint.
On that same day, the case was printed, signed, sealed, and notarized. And on September 5th, 2024, Bundy versus Deep State was officially filed.
Here's what my dad told me in the 4th grade. He goes, you're a boy and you're going to be a man. Nobody cares about any pain, any suffering that you've gone through. Nobody. If you want sympathy, he goes, you can find sympathy in the dictionary between shit and syphilis. So let me tell you what you're going to do. You're going to go back to school tomorrow, and then you're going to walk right up to him and punch him in the face. And I said, and he goes, and then he said, oh, he's going to beat me up. He goes, and every day you go to school, you're going to punch him in the face. You're going to punch him again.
As journalists and documentary filmmakers, it's our duty to bring you the uncensored story. And it's really the only thing we can do. We leave you with a clip of Mike Little from July 26, 2024, from a time when he thought he was getting better.
So, I mean, you got people out there that are scared of tweets and stuff, and you're out here talking about how you're potentially just poison, your health compromised, and you're about to dive right back into the game. I mean, what do you tell the people that are too scared to do what you're doing?
Well, I'd like to think that we're not a nation of cowards. That when we see something that's not true, it's not honest, yeah, we set course to correct it. And so my game basically is picking up where the Bundys left off. These poor folks did years of prison time by a federal judge and magistrate in violation of their constitutional rights, in violation of the Constitution itself.
Please help us at America Happens to promote this video you just watched by sharing it so more people can understand what's really going on. And help us continue to document this story and others like it by donating to our Give, Send, Go link below. Your support is immensely appreciated.